Hello and welcome to the next round. This is the top 4 round of the Card Festa Championships in OP08.5, that 0.5 being the starter decks. OP09 has released at the time of this recording, but we're watching back an event that didn't have OP09 accessible, especially for all you people that are doing some preparation, either that for OP08, which is just coming out in the West, or getting ready for OP08.5 starter decks 15 through 20, which have had a really cool impact on the meta. Check out the other videos on this tournament and even more tournaments on the channel if you have not already. But for those of you that are here, let's look into the decks in these two teams heading into this round. So these are the two teams that we're going to be watching today. The Doflamingo team that we saw earlier, we're going to be checking out their game, as well as the team on the right being the more traditional team that we see in this tournament, right? Black Hill, Luffy, Lucci, and Law. You guys already know the matchup, so I'm not going to spend too much more time on it. It's going to be that Lucci on the left side versus Enel on the right side. Now, if you're wondering how I'm watching this event, I'm watching the official live stream from the tournament themselves. Link to this is in the description below if you want to watch it for yourself. And also, just a real quick before we get into this matchup, you guys have let me know in the past couple of videos that my popping sounds from my microphone, just me talking, right, my P's and B's, has been a little bit like, it's been hard on the ears, and I've listened to it back, and I totally agree with you all. I put this little filter thing on. I have another thing that's a little bit bigger and bulkier, so let me know how you feel about this pronunciation of like P's and B's throughout this one, because this matchup, if you do not know, Enel versus Lucci can be a grinder. This one can be really, really tough, especially because Lucci being able to pop bodies every single turn, which is so strong, especially in this last tournament that Stage was around. The Enel is going to be able to continuously survive, right? Continuously gain more life. So if they can starve out the Rob Lucci, it's going to work really well for them in this game. And looking at the Rob Lucci's hand, it looks like they're going first in this one. They got Khalifa, Rob Lucci, Jack, the best card in my opinion in OP08. We'll talk about our buy list in a future video. I promise that'll come out soon. Rebecca and Gecko Moria right here in the hand. So not a terrible hand in here, not a great hand either, but you've got some key pieces. But the Enel has an interesting hand right here. They got the 10 cost Ace, 9 cost Yamato. You've got the 6 drop Raigo, which will be really, really good for popping some of the bigger characters on Lucci's side. You got the 5 drop Nami and also that 2 drop Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi, usually a 2 of an Enel decks, and I believe in this deck list as well. We'll showcase that deck list and a Rob Lucci deck list at the end of this video as always. The Shirahoshi kind of checks the Rob Lucci a little bit, says, you know what, because of this on KO effect, if you decide to KO me through effects and not through battle, I'm just going to gain an extra life and make this game even longer. So the Rob Lucci is going first in this one. We'll see exactly what they do. It looks like maybe through the first couple turns, just passing on Dawn 1, maybe swinging 8 Dawn 2 if they don't get anything off the top deck. But we'll see right here. That 1 Dawn is going to be a pass, moving into the 2 Dawn turn for the Enel. Now, 2 options right now. They could play the Shirahoshi at this point, but they are just going to pass it off, not wanting to play the Shirahoshi. You'll see a lot of Enel players do this in certain situations where they decide, you know what, I'm just going to play this Shirahoshi alongside one of my bigger bodies, like maybe an 8 drop Katakuri or something like that, 7 drop Enel to make it even harder for you. And so after taking that 5,000 power swing, no life, we'll move into the Enel's 4 Dawn turn. So now with 2 Shirahoshis here, 4 Dawn could see a swing into life, could see maybe one of these 2 Shirahoshis come down. You do have 2 in hand, is thinking about it right now, would leave 2 Dawn open, but just decides to pass, saying, you know what, I'm going to continue the starve route. I'm really going to focus on keeping these Shirahoshis for when I get the big bodies on the field, and the Lucci player is just going to go ahead and swing. Milling a couple cards off of that leader effect. It looked like they've done Subaru, Jack, Who's Who, and I think a second Jack actually in there. So 3 Jacks we've seen so far. The Enel taking another life, going down to that Precious 2, still no triggers. And with 4 is going to use that Khalifa. Really just trying to do some hand filtering right now, trying to get a body on the field to maybe apply some pressure in the future turns. You've got 2 Rob Luccis in the trash, pairs really well with Gecko at a lot of certain points. And with 6 Dawn right here, could see something played now at this point. You've got a couple different options. The 5 with the Nami could work in here. You could also play the Shirahoshi and is opting for that Nami. That Nami, one of the new cards in OP08, one of the better SRs that you can get in this one, is going to be nice, but does not decide to use that on play effect of trashing a trigger card and then KOing a 5 or less. So interesting move there, not getting rid of the Khalifa. The Lucci though is going to be taking another life right here. Now 1 life is going to trigger the what's that guy called? Frankie right there. My apologies. The Frankie right there is going to hit the field. The Nami is at 4 because that was the target of the minus, and the Jack is coming down. Now, with the Jack being right there and the Nami at 4, it is not going to be KO'd because remember, Jack KOs 3 costs or less. And so now moving into the Enel, it's kind of a standoff right now, not wanting to swing with any of the characters on the Rob Lucci side. Enel already at 1, but at 8, Dawn right here could go ahead and play this Rygo. This Rygo would essentially just be a 6 Dawn card, and they will do it. Get rid of that Jack. You've seen a couple go down already, and play the Shirahoshi with the rest of the Dawn. Get that blocker on the field. So 5 life still with the Lucci. We'll see what they got. Only 6 cards in hand. 7 with the top deck. Not really a deck that you see really continuously builds the hand, right? Like something like Enel being able to consistently get the bodies. The leader effect off of that 5k swing is going to get 2 NS lobby stages, something that the Lucci player probably wishes that they had earlier in the game, and is going to -1 that Shirahoshi on this attack. So you got a couple different ideas here. You could go ahead and block with the Shirahoshi. You could just take this life, no trigger, use your leader effect, get back to 1 life right here, and then if they decide to KO the Shirahoshi, you would go back up to 2. So makes a pretty safe game plan. You still have to trash 1 through that leader effect. They're thinking about the Gadatsu. I like the Gadatsu right here. Not really something that is useful at this point, and is going to be another 5k swing right at this part. I think it's a 9 Dawn turn, so is maybe thinking about playing that 8 drop Gecko. We could see Rebecca come down. Rebecca grabbing a Jack could be really nice. Not really something that you can play, I think, with 2 or less, since Suru is just kind of going to be there. But we'll see that Gecko come down after that Nami hits the bench, or hits the discard, and it is going to be a Rebecca grabbing back that Jack. Like I said, Jack, just an instrumental card. The best SR that you can get in OP08 if you're looking at what cards you should get from singles like TCGplayer.com. And so now going into Enel at a full 10 Dawn turn, can go ahead and play that 10 drop ace. They would gain a life and then go ahead and get that rush. Maybe thinking about playing this Yamato. This Yamato would be able to collect a blocker in that Rebecca, especially because that 5k swing right there is just taking a knockout. So could get a lot of value right here. Using that Yamato comes down, takes out the Rebecca, gains a life. Would have been interesting, in my opinion, to see something like Ace come down if the Yamato wasn't played first, or maybe the Lucci player just using block right away on that Rebecca and maybe expecting the Yamato, but still no swings from this Enel at the life. No characters rested to go at. We're going to go back into the Rob Lucci's turn. So the Rob Lucci now kind of filtered, I think, about 12 cards or so, somewhere around that area, 11, 12 cards, has now about 8 in hand. So a lot of non-counter cards you see here with the Rob Lucci, Tempest Kick, Gecko, the Jack could spell trouble later, but does have Rebecca's to go ahead and utilize. You've got a Spandine as well in hand, a nice 1K counter, but not really any 2Ks at this point on the 10 Dawn turn. Maybe this is a tempo moment for you in this game. Maybe you go ahead and you continuously play jacks, swing 7 right here, go ahead, do some minusing, drop a couple. The Frankie does go down to 3, so if you go ahead and swing 10 from the Gecko, that Jack is going to come down and get that Frankie, but another Frankie triggers off that 7, is going to draw a card off of that after playing that Frankie down on field because they were out 1 or less life. Just so good. Enel, when they get just a couple triggers, they haven't gotten too many in this game, but 2 Frankie triggers is so strong in its own right. So another Gecko is going to come down, not thinking of getting the Jack down on the field yet, but is going to Suru and Rob Lucci KO that one standalone Frankie on the side, I believe, because of the -1 putting it at 3. The one Frankie is, I think, the only thing that they can KO alongside the Shirahoshi, right? Because the Shirahoshi is still at 2, Frankie being out 1 from the Suru, and they'll gain that life right there. But you got rid of a pesky blocker on the field. And so now with Enel on 10 Dawn turn, is counting up the cards in their hand, especially with something like Isho that could come up. Isho, not something out of the ordinary in Rob Lucci decks. Does have another Yamato in hand, has another Yamato, but is going to play down the ace, is going to gain 3 life, and just continue to wait. Right now, the Enel is building up these huge bodies and waiting for the Rob Lucci to turn their characters sideways, right? Being able to swing into their big bodies before their big bodies swing into you is a game plan that the Enel thinks is worth the risk. Having so many cards in hand, having so many bodies on the field, especially some of these bigger bodies, and still at 3 life, right? As a 4 life leader, you really like to see that at this point. And the Rob Lucci, then this is a fact that we see with the stage not being present can make some of these game plans for Lucci really difficult at times. So it's going to be curious, especially how Rob Lucci's respond. We saw in Liverpool in real time, OP08 or OP07.5 in the West, how that kind of worked out for Rob Lucci's. But continuing into this game, because we are in this one, is off of that 7K swing with leader, is going to -1 that Frankie, put it at 3 again, and that ace comes in hand. Just another ace, going to be able to play back-to-back-to-back aces if they want to. And so a Yamato is looking, or I'm sorry, Onami is looking to be gotten, and potentially this beige, it's going to be countering out of 8 on that 7 swing. So here comes the Jack, 7 Dawn rested. That Jack is going to come down. Curious if they use that Jack effect. Remember, Jack gives itself +4 cost, makes it an 11 cost character at all times on the field. But what it also does with that activate main is resting the character, draw 1, trash 1, and KOing a 3 cost or less. So looks like they are going to do that. Is going to draw an Ennis Lobby stage and a Rob Lucci. Going to be interesting to see if they play that Ennis Lobby stage. Again, like I mentioned, is huge for the game plan, but maybe a little bit too late to be able to really combat this Enel. So 8-drop Katakuri comes down on the field. We could see an 8-drop Katakuri get rid of one of these Geckos and the rest of the 2 Dawn used for the Shirahoshi. That's a game plan that we could see evolve into this turn. Could be very nice. Could also just play another ace, it feels like, in this one. So 10 Dawn active and swinging the ace first, saying, you know what, there's no time like the present, and I'm just going to swing 10. Probably swinging at this Jack right here. This Jack, being an 8,000 character, does need a 2K and a 1K to get out of this, and that's exactly what it's going to be with the Who's Who and Spandine. So Getting out of that one, still could use this Yamato to swing 9 at that 8,000 power jack, would force a 2K, and with 5 cards in hand, you gotta imagine that this Rob Lucci probably has one 2K, and that's exactly what they do have right here. So could play this ace right here, not gain a life, really prioritizing that jack, because remember, when you play that 10 cost ace, you don't have to gain a life. It says up to 1, so you can choose not to play one at all in order to maintain that rush if before you play it you have 2 lives. So doing exactly that, taking out that jack, saving the Yamato for potentially the gecko swings. And so going to be swinging 5 with this lead, is going to be taking life. This first life taken from the Rob Lucci, it's a 1 cost Spandam, and that Spandam could be able to be used in the game if they want to try to find another pivotal character. The problem with the CP engine, though, I feel like, is if you're not playing Stussy, you don't really have any big CP targets that you want to combat a lot of these Enel cards, right, that are coming on the field at this point. So we'll see if this player does see a Stussy in this game. We have not seen one yet. We've just seen jacks and geckos, but with this 10 Dawn turn, lots of different things can happen. So going to be swinging 5 right here, going to be ditching 2 cards, a gecko and a who's who. Is going to be minusing the Yamato, it looks like. So the Yamato is going to be at 8 right here. Could play this stage, bring it down to 6, a Tempest Kick, bring it down to 3, and then maybe, if no, they don't have another jack to be able to do this, could do a Rebecca Spandine Lucci combo of some sort. You need a little bit more of the minusing effects to be able to do that, but is going to attach 3, swing 12 now at this ace really just battling this out. We could see another set of Dawn with the other geckos swing at the aces. Just says, you know what, at this point I gotta start battling these characters, right? You found these cards, you found these in hand, and it's just gonna keep getting worse if I let these stay. So going to go after them now. Needs a 0 cost event that they have in hand. Thinking about pitching a couple different things. I think maybe Rygo is one of the better options right here. You like the 8 cost category, gets rid of one of the geckos, right? You've seen at least 1 in trash already, maybe 2. It's hard to tell with the glimmer of the light, but there may be 2 geckos in trash at this point, at least 1 that we just saw discarded. So the Katakuri is probably going to hit big, and then the Yamato might be able to get rid of some other pesky characters, right? Like that Rob Lucci, that 4 cost Lucci could be really nice. You never know. So is going to be thinking about either the Yamato or the Rygo in here. I don't think either are bad options. So we'll see exactly what they want to go with, and it looks like they're picking the Rygo potentially. I do like the Rygo play. Think it's my preferred of the 2. I think especially in this matchup, you just want to keep up the pace of these boss monsters, and getting rid of that Rygo right there, officially going up to 13k, is going to have some swings left. And so attaching 3 to this other gecko, swinging another 12 at this ace. So starting to dwindle down the aces, or the Enel's hand, by combating these aces, requiring 2 cards of a combination, is going to take that knockout right there. And so with the rest of the 4, is going to play this Rebecca being able to grab a card. Is curious on what card you do want to grab, right? You're running low on counter a little bit, but you do want to pick up these bodies and continue combating these large characters on the Enel side. So we may see another jack come into hand. That jack that was KO'd could potentially come in again, even though it wouldn't be rested or KOing anything maybe on the next turn. It's still just a great card to have in, like I was saying, you know, picking up and keeping up the tempo. Maybe thinking about the who's who in this one. It's either the who's who or the jack has gone through a good amount of cards. I would say 17 cards or so in the trash, and not only that, you've got 5 in hand, 4 in life, another 5 on the field. So that right there is already about 14 other cards, so about 31 cards going through in a 50 card deck getting low kind of in the back half of their deck right now. And so top decking that 0 cost event is going to be nice for maybe keeping some of these characters alive, right? Because the more that they do these swings with the geckos as the Rob Lucci, the Enel is just thinking, okay, that's another boss monster that's not coming on the field. So Enel looking like a really good position right now, so long as they can continue fighting these bodies, and they've got that with the ace and the Katakuri in hand, is just gonna go ahead, swing 5, and is going to get a 1K right there. That 1K is going to be nice. Maybe finally swinging with his Nami. We haven't seen this Nami swing yet since it came down on the field. Has just kind of been staring there and moving across the character area, right, to one side to another. But is going to go ahead, swing this 9 at what I presume is a gecko, but it's actually going to be a life. The life swing right here is going to force one. You're kind of saying to the gecko right now, okay, we're at a point right now, especially because I'm probably going to play this 10 cost Enel or something of the sort, maybe playing the 8 cost Katakuri, but with these swings at life, you're going to have to respond by going at my life, or I'm going to potentially going to win the game, right? You're going to have to potentially force out these characters. And when you have a 2K, a 0 cost event, and a Shirahoshi 1 cost, especially after using that gecko, you've got a decent amount of counter in hand to be able to fight these Lucci characters that are on the field, and we go into another turn. Ice Age is really nice to be able to get rid of one of these big bodies, right? You could Ice Age and Jack in the same turn to get rid of some stuff. But now back up in 4 life, probably not going to see the gecko for the rest of the game. That went back into life is a tough situation for this Rob Lucci. So going ahead and attaching 1 is going to swing 10 at this Yamato, is going to force either a 2K or 2 1Ks or the 0 cost event. And with that flop in hand, they are just going to let that one go, and it's going to be a heavy Dawn investment to be able to swing at either Yamato or Ace yet again. So I think the 2K right there is worth a lot of value. Get to keep that, and also make the Rob Lucci decide what they want to do. And so going to be trashing those 2 cards, going to minus the Yamato right there, going to put it at an 8 cost, is probably thinking about playing this Ice Age. And so this potential trigger that this Enel has, it is a Raigo, going to take out that Rob Lucci. So nice right there. But that Ice Age is going to minus the Yamato to a 3. And if they decide to play the Jack right here with 7 of their 8 Dawn left, it is going to be able to KO this Yamato on this filter effect. So did get rid of 1 boss monster, but your boss monsters that you put down are now both rested. So that could spell a little bit of trouble, especially if another 10 cost ace comes down on the field. And so does have to get rid of another card. Looks like they got a Spandam off of that. Is going to do the Spandime. You do have Rebecca's in your hand, and so the Rebecca is going to be nice, and just going to be doing a little bit of filtering with the final Dawn. Is going to find 2 Tempest Kick and then a stage. So grabbing one of the Tempest Kicks right here is going to give it up to the Enel now onto their turn. And so now swinging 10 over at the Jack, I believe it's either the Jack or the Gecko, is just going to swing into it and try to collect a quick knockout. It is going to be a 2K, 1K to get out of that one. That 8 cost probably also going at that Jack, is going to force 2K encounter, which the Rob Lucci does not have right now. And so, or I'm sorry, is just going to force the last amount of counter. And then this ace coming in and swinging at the Jack. No more counter out of that one. I got a little bit ahead of myself there. It is going to swing that 5 into life. It is going to be another Jack, which is nice, but especially if this Nami decides to swing with this 5K, that's going to be another life taken for you. But if you're the Enel, one of the things that you're trying to think about at this point is, I don't want to give them too many cards right now, right? Especially if they go ahead and play a Rebecca, right? Which is not unreasonable. We haven't seen too many played, by this Lucci player in this game. If a Rebecca comes down, I want to use this Yamato to potentially knock out that Rebecca and swing for the fences. I've put the Rob Lucci in a position with all of these boss monsters to potentially start going for life, especially if I use the zero cost event and get out of one of these swings. Maybe going to put the Rob Lucci on panic at this stage of the game. So Rob Lucci now has milled a ton of cards, probably only has like 15 cards left, I'd imagine, somewhere around there. There's a lot of cards in the trash that I see right there. Still no Stussies, I think, at this point. He's just going to start off swinging 5 and do the leader effect, getting rid of Ice Age, and I think a Rob Lucci is going to go at life and is going to give the Enel another card to work with right here. This could be, we see the Rob Lucci trying to get them down as low as possible. It is an Onami, but opting not to use it, wants to save that value, and is going to be swinging 10k, I believe, at the Katakuri, and so that zero cost event in hand is going to be very nice. You could use that on the Onami to get around the Gecko swing, right? That Gecko swing that is 10 would be countered out by your 11,000 if you use the zero cost on the Katakuri. So could be very nice at this point. And also you still have that Shirahoshi blocker, so that's something that you can't forget right now. Just a really good card, especially at this stage of the game, right? If they use that Jack on their hand, it's just gonna net you another life. So is thinking about blocking here right now. I don't know. It's an interesting spot, right? Because you don't want to reveal that you're giving up non-counter cards in your hand, and going down to 2 can be very scary. So is thinking about, you're really just confirming at this point, oh yeah, you're swinging at the Katakuri, right? So is going to go ahead and counter out of that, and the 2 Tempest Kicks minusing 6 on the ace, I think it was. And so with the Rob Lucci leader effect doing the ace, it is going to be a Jack that comes down, takes out that ace on the boss monster with the double Tempest Kicks, right? Doing -3 each time with the amount that you have in trash, and it's just going to pass it back to the Enel. The Enel top decking another Katakuri, is going to potentially be able to get rid of both boss monsters here right now and putting 1 back in life. So swinging 10, we'll see if this is at lead or at the characters, right? We could see this coming at the Jack. Is going to be a 3,000 power difference, which is not easy for this Lucci with only a couple cards in hand, only 4 cards right now. Now, they have a lot of counter out of those 4 cards, but opts to just let the Jack go right now. Maybe saying, okay, I can save the Gecko potentially with all the counter that I have in hand, and is probably thinking right here, maybe I'm going to go in with this 8-cost Katakuri, and this 8-cost Katakuri, although can't swing at the Gecko without any Dawn attached, the Enel is going to swing at lead first. And so here's the tough decision. Do you take this life, or do you go ahead and counter out of it? It is just going to be a 1k counter, and you do have a 1k counter in hand, right? You've got a couple 2ks even. So thinking about what card they want to give up, is just going to give up a 2k Suru right there, valuing the Rebecca. The Rebecca, a nice character to use on your turn, and this Nami swing finally coming in, finally taking a jab at this Rob Lucci, is going to force another 2k out of the hand as this Katakuri goes in and hits a life. The other Katakuri is going to come down, going to put that Gecko in the life. Both Geckos pretty much now out of this game, and not a lot to use. The Lucci is only at 5 cards left as well, almost in the deck out phase, but especially when you have Rebecca with Rebecca Spandine Lucci combo that you could use, you're not really going to run out of cards in deck, I feel like, if you're the Rob Lucci. You just kind of go into this infinite loop of sorts, and so is really trying to think about if they're going to be able to get it at this point. They do have to commit a ton, but if they don't win on this turn, it's not looking great. Could spell trouble. But especially when you're at 3 life, now you put this Enel in a weird position, right? You put the Enel in an interesting spot at 3 life to where if they swing at you and they allow you to get your geckos back, can those geckos potentially swing the game back in your favor and take down this Enel? So Rob Lucci splitting up the Dawn a little bit right now. 4 cards in hand with the Spandam, Brooke, Rebecca, and Khalifa. And we'll see with the 2 what they mill off of this Rob Lucci. So it's going to be an Ice Age and a Tempest Kick right here. Is going to -1 that Kanakuri, putting it at 7 right now. And so is going to be swinging 7, I believe, at the Nami. Could be at life right now. And it looks like as well the other matches in this, the teams have split 1-1. So the end result of this game is going to determine who moves into the finals. And so swinging that 7 at the Nami is going to take a knockout, and we move into the Lucci's turn with 8 Dawn left. Is going to go ahead and play a Rebecca. That Rebecca is going to grab a character from the trash and play a 3 cost or less from their hand onto the character area of the field, and they are going to play that Spandine combo with the Rob Lucci to put 6 cards back in total. Remember that with the Spandine and Rob Lucci, the Rob Lucci, you put the 3 cards back, but you don't have to KO anything. You can just put those cards back. And so is now at 6 cards left and knows exactly what the order of their cards are as well, especially with the 9 with that Rob Lucci that they used earlier. They know exactly all the cards in their deck, and they're manipulating their 3s, right, to be able to use in certain situations like the Spandam. So going to put back this time Who's Who, Rebecca, and Gecko right now. Gecko being on the top and Who's Who being at the bottom is going to get that Shirahoshi and is going to give them an extra life. And so now going into the turn, is that another Katakuri? That's another Katakuri right there. Oh my goodness. This Enel just eating at this point with these Katakuris. And so is probably going to play the Yamato down. The Yamato is going to pop that Rebecca, which will be very nice. And especially if you swing right here, you swing all of these swings, you force the Gecko or the Rob Lucci player to say, you know what, do I want to get rid of the life, right? Get these Geckos back in my hand? Or do I want the Rebecca to potentially be popped, right, by another character or something? And so this Enel's really probably going to play the Yamato, I would think, to try to get rid of one of these characters to alleviate more of the pressure, right? Because it's either pop the Rebecca or pop the Rob Lucci, especially if they take this first life. If they take this first life, that would really spell what the Enel is going to do, because then you would have to pop the Yamato, but is going to swing that 10 at the Rob Lucci, is going to just get that guy out of the way. And so thinking about playing this Yamato right here, that's the card that they're moving their hands through. Popping this Rebecca, I do like this before you're swinging. You get rid of that, you get another body on the field, and you've still got 2 swings left, a 6, 8, and an 8. And so this 6 is going to go first, and it looks like they used that 2K Khalifa, I think, very quickly before they did this 8. And so is going to get a Brooke right here and may just pass the turn off, and that's exactly what they're going to do. Say, you know what, I'm not going to give you any of those geckos until I'm ready to go for a game, as time is called in this. You can't tell because of my camera, but they've just officially hit time in the round. I told you that this is a long and grueling matchup sometimes. So I think the Rob Lucci is turn 0. I don't know that officially for sure, but it looks like that the Rob Lucci was at 0. And so top decking another Gecko could maybe alleviate some pressure in this one, but you don't really have a lot of minusing effects that are going on in your deck right now to be able to utilize and really just keep you in this game. So especially with 4 big bodies on the field and you're not really able to get rid of any of them, it's looking like it's spelling trouble with not having any bodies out on the field right now for this Rob Lucci player. And so the Rob Lucci looks like they're going to be swinging 5, is going to trash the 2 cards right there, is going to -1 the Katakuri. The minusing probably not as big of a deal, but is going to take that life. It's going to be a 2K, which is really nice, especially at some points. You would love a trigger body, I feel like, at this point, but is going to go ahead and Gecko gonna get a Rebecca. We'll see if they get anything on this 2 cost or less. Looks like it's going to be a Spandam, so the Spandam is going to get rid of that Suru and then activate probably before the Rebecca is going to use that to look at those 3 cards, grab the 2K that they skillfully put there actually through the Spandine and Rob Lucci, and then through the Rebecca effect is going to go ahead and play that Spandime over the Spandam to get once again 6 more cards back in the deck potentially. So is going to go ahead and put 6 cards in. We'll see what the 3 are. You do have to put the 3 before you do 1, so is going to do that same method of Tempest Kick, and 2K to be able to get, and then go ahead and play the Rob Lucci and probably do the same thing. Just strategically try to do some characters that you wouldn't mind drawing, or a event, and 2K in there. So looking around, looks like no Kaku 2Ks in this deck, just Who's Who being played. Who's Who, a much better 2K in my opinion than that Kaku, having that trigger. We haven't seen it in this game, but that trigger is so good, and even that effect is good as well. And using that Spandam right here with the final Dawn, it seems, is going to grab that 2K, just gathering the 2Ks in the hand, as we talked about, ones that they set there, is going to head off into the turn. I don't think it's enough, unfortunately, with 2Ks and 2 1Ks. This 9K swing right here is going to decide whether you want to hit life, use blocker, or give up 3 cards in your hand, which would spell a lot of trouble, especially with 5 swings right now, because remember, they've got 8 with the Katakuris, 10 with the ace, and up to 15 with leaders. So we'll see exactly where they want to go right now. You do need every single swing to hit if you're not going to pop the Rebecca in order to win this game. And so with the Rebecca being blocked right here, just gonna have to math out the Dawn at this point. I think maybe you want to swing 9s with the Katakuri, and so they are going to be swinging 9s with this Katakuri. Is going to have to force pretty much the entire hand. You can only counter out of one of these swings, and then the rest of the swings would cause you a game over. So is going to take that life right now, or another 9 coming in from this Katakuri is going to be another one. Looks like they are going to be dumping the hand on this with 2 cards left in hand. You go ahead and swing the 10. Don't think about it too hard. You could just swing the 10 with the ace and then slap the rest on the Enel leader, and is going to go ahead just do 11 just in case there's no shenanigans. And the rest of the way, 7 Dawn, 12,000 power with leader, and the Dofi Enel, and I think it was Red Purple Law, the team makes it to the next round, the championship final. So a thrilling game, actually, very cool in my opinion, in terms of how that matchup can go, especially because that's kind of an accurate representation of Lucci, right, heading into the Western OP08 format, because never being able to see stage in that game kind of gives an accurate reflection of how tough that matchup can be, especially when you don't have it. So obviously Rob Lucci will adapt from that into the OP08 meta, right? They won't be playing Ennis lobbies, obviously. They'll be playing other cards that help out their game plan, but It's a really interesting idea and a really interesting concept that even though this isn't a format that we'll ever play in, to visit on and really think about in terms of some of the matchups when we go into the future. But let's look at some deck lists. And so this is a Rob Lucci list. We don't have the exact list from this event. That was never posted, but this is a pretty interesting list that you can probably model a couple things after, right? Obviously, you know, no NS lobby if you're in the West and looking to play in OP08. You've got a couple different options in here. Jack, a great inclusion. Maybe want to bump that up to 4. The Brook, a great card. Probably want to add, instead of NS lobby, maybe a couple more Who's Who 2Ks just to be able to accelerate the game plan. I do like Helmeppos in the list because Helmeppos are really good synergy with stuff like Gecko, and then also Rebecca being nice as well to grab a lot of these different characters. Your Lucci, your Khalifa, your Sabo, your Who's Who in here, right? A lot of different good things alongside Brooke and Spandine and Jack even. So might be something that you look towards in the future. Maybe even playing 4 of Suru to be able to get stuff that does some minusing on your opponents, right? You can play this 2K character. Bumping up the 2Ks could be nice, especially if you plan on playing a little bit more of the Subarus. But think about it this way: with 2 Dawn, using Helmeppo to go -3, right? Stage is 2, and with Helmeppo kind of dying or getting recycled into the trash from the field because of the number of characters that you have on the field every single turn, could be something to keep an eye out on. And so this right here is the Enel deck that I believe was played in this one. Does look like a pretty standard Enel list, I would say, in a lot of situations right here, especially with OP08 that came out. Nami is such a good inclusion in this deck with an excellent trigger with that on play ability. We didn't see the on play ability showcased in this one, but it is so good, especially when you have a low hand size at certain stages of the game, if they try to starve you or anything like that, because you get to also potentially draw off of it as well. That's pretty much the only inclusion that we usually see. Sometimes we see a Jewelry Bonnie SR at times, not in this list though, just opting for kind of the consistency, right, of this. We didn't get to see Shirahoshi played in this game, but another great card that Enel loves to go to. And I think that was the only card that we really didn't see from this Enel list in here. Just ultra consistency with mostly 4-ofs besides this Shirahoshi, right? Because if you're going to go 4-ofs pretty much everything, something has to be a 2 in order to round up to the 50. So Shirahoshi getting that, being a pretty good card, I feel like, in a lot of situations, being that blocker. But a lot of times Enel doesn't really care about blocking. They just care about getting life back through their ace, through their Yamato, and a bunch of different great stuff in this deck. And so that's going to be it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've got my OP08 buy list pretty soon coming on the channel. I think I'm going to be recording that in the next day or so. Try to get that video out shortly after this one, and then I'll get to the finals. Don't worry, I will get to it. It's just been so busy lately for me, and I've just been having a good old time with some stuff. So hopefully that'll be coming soon in the next 24, 48 hours or something like that. I've got all of the buy list options planned out. I just got to record the thing, and that's kind of like the hardest part in my opinion. But anyways, let me know again how this pop filter worked. I think it worked okay in the little 5-second test recording that I did, but I wanted to be able to do this, and so just getting it out now, and I've got a couple different options if I have to continuously adjust. So thank you again so much for watching. This video is really long. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you soon.